I can't believe it, friends. We're at the comedies, because now the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, after Ferrari's disqualification in China, will change the rules. In fact, new rules are expected for 2026 to avoid the situation we saw in China. In this video, I'll discuss the topic and share my opinion. But not only that, we also need to look at the problems with the SF25 recognized in China. Let's talk in detail about the situation at Red Bull and also look at the hydraulic problem reported on Norris's McLaren. Before we start, please leave a supportive like. If you are not yet subscribed, please subscribe, and now let's look at everything in detail. During the China Grand Prix weekend, two cars, those of Leclerc and Gasly, were disqualified for being underweight at the end of the race. A situation caused by tire wear in a race that many teams have reduced from 2 stops to just 1. Similar incidents had already occurred, such as in the 2024 Belgium Grand Prix when it was George Russell, the winner at the finish line, who was excluded for the same reason. In all cases, the common thread is the same. Strategies initially based on 2 stops have become a single pit stop. At Spa, only 3 drivers tried this strategy, while in Shanghai, a good 14 out of 20 changed their strategy during the race. The consistency of the weight at the end of the race depends on several factors: the safety margin adopted by the team's tire degradation and the overall load of the car. In Shanghai, Leclerc lost the 5th position due to a wrong estimate of tire consumption, which was also worsened by the damaged front wing. The fact that 12 drivers finished the race with the same strategy without being disqualified highlights how, in similar cases, minor details make the difference. For example, we saw Verstappen go into the mud on purpose at the end of the race to increase the weight, although this seems more like a rumor than reality. To avoid these situations from happening again, the 2026 technical regulations, which will introduce completely new single-seaters, both aerodynamically and power unit-wise, will also bring some changes to the minimum weight. Currently, the minimum weight of 1,762 pounds is the same for both qualifying and the race, excluding variables such as fuel. From 2026, however, differentiated limits will be introduced depending on the session: 1,602 pounds plus the nominal mass of the tires for qualifying and sprint qualifying, 1,597 pounds plus the nominal mass of the tires for all other sessions. The nominal mass of the tires will be determined by the supplier and based on the average of 50 dry tires per axle measured after the last day of pre-championship TCC testing, and this change is fundamental and completely changes the season. In fact, it aims to avoid new disqualifications for underweight, but it will not be easy for the teams to reach the new targets. As happened in 2022 with the return of the ground effect, many stables could also struggle to go below the minimum limit in 2026. In 2022, for example, Sauber benefited from a lighter car compared to the competition, gaining an initial advantage. However, for 2026, the challenge will be even more ambitious. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile aims for lighter and more agile cars, in line with the new hybrid power units and with reduced diameter and width tires, which should also reduce the weight difference between new and used sets. With the aim of increasing competitiveness and preventing disqualifications related to weight, 2026 will mark a significant change in the technical management of single-seaters. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile has already taken the necessary measures. Now it's up to the teams to adapt precisely. And foresight, Ferrari wants to introduce new updates to aim for the top again. But while they optimize everything to win, are you doing the same with your taxes? We'll talk about it later with Fiscozen, who is the sponsor of this video. If you have a value-added tax number or are thinking of opening one, you should know that incorrect tax management can cost you a lot of money and unnecessarily complicate your life. It's a problem I also faced until I discovered Fiscozen, the service that allowed me to simplify everything and finally have control over my taxes without stress. Fiscozen offers a clear and comprehensive solution for those with a value-added tax number. It allows you to manage everything online without the need to waste time with accountants, complicated documents, and deadlines that are hard to remember. What struck me most about Fiscozen was the possibility of having a dedicated accountant always available for any doubt or question. If I don't understand something, I just ask and immediately receive a clear answer. Another huge advantage of Fiscozen is that it calculates in advance how much taxes you will have to pay, so no more surprises or accounts that don't add up. If you don't have a value-added tax number yet, you can open one for free with them and receive the support you need right away. It doesn't matter if you're a freelancer, a craftsman, or sell online, Fiscozen follows you step by step, so you can focus on your work without worrying about bureaucracy. If you really want to understand how much you can save and how to improve the management of your value-added tax number, I recommend you try the free consultation with a Fiscozen expert. It's without obligation and will immediately give you a clear picture of your tax situation. I'll leave the link in the description, take advantage of it right away, and don't make the mistake of leaving your tax management to chance. With that said, let's get back to us. And the question that naturally arises is why didn't the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile intervene earlier to modify this area of the regulation? We've already seen this last year. There was already a specific episode like the Belgian Grand Prix with Russell, where a car, due to a risky strategy, and rightly they tried it, to make one less stop, was disqualified for this very reason. In my opinion, unjustly, in the sense that every team should be free to try different strategies than those recommended by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile and by Pirelli in particular. This will change for 2026 because we will have a minimum weight limit for qualifying and for the race having more margin available in the race to risk different strategies. So the change for next year is right, but they should have intervened earlier. As always, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile is late with decisions, and it happens once with Russell, and it happens a second time with Gasly and Leclerc in this case in China. So they arrived late, and so the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile changes the rules after Ferrari is disqualified. Well, and this is what actually happened. In my opinion, the Ferrari case has created a stir, and so the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile felt it necessary to intervene, perhaps also thanks to the pressure made by Ferrari itself. But be careful, because there is also a point to clarify on the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's post-China race statement. As usual, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile publishes at the end of each race the official race scrutineering document, where all the checks carried out on the cars are listed. One item that often causes confusion is the one related to weight. All single-seaters, it should be clarified, are always weighed. However, some checks, such as the plank and skid blocks, are performed on a sample basis, leading to confusion. In communication number 86 relating to the 2025 China Grand Prix, the Ferrari SF25 number 44 does not appear in the list of cars subjected to plank control. However, in the concluding paragraph of the document, reference is made to an irregularity specifically on Hamilton's single-seater, referring back to document number 80.
The comparison
with the 2023 Austin Grand Prix is inevitable. There too, Leclerc and Hamilton were disqualified for excessive wear of the plank. But in that case, their race numbers clearly appeared in the main list of the technical document without any references or ambiguous formulas. Those who are used to reading Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile reports know that the language and structure are generally the same from race to race. Oh, that's why this anomaly caught attention. Why not include car number 44 from the start among those checked for the plank? Was it perhaps an extra check requested later? This has led to an unconfirmed hypothesis that is sparking debate in the paddock. Is it possible that Ferrari was not initially among the cars to be checked and that the inspection started following a report from another team? The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile obviously has not provided explanations, and it is unlikely to do so. There remains a suspicion, or at least a doubt, that something did not follow the usual procedure. Supporting this theory is the fact that the wear of the plank was measured on both the Red Bulls, the Mercedes and the McLarens, but it is not clearly mentioned for Ferrari number 44 except in passing. In short, this is a story that needs to be clarified, even though in the Formula 1 circus some answers tend to remain buried beneath the surface, just like the plank of a single-seater. It's certainly unusual, as it's a procedure consistently followed from race to race. If a car is not supposed to be subjected to an extra sample check, why then is it checked? You realize there is an anomaly, something strange. Then of course there remains the fact that car 44 was not regular, but it should not have been checked in this case either. One can discuss whether random checks are the right solution, maybe all cars should be checked, but this is the procedure that the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile is doing at this moment. And it means that someone reported car 44 on the wear of the plank and made an extra check that was not planned. One could actually talk about a conspiracy in this case. But many of these realities then remain under the surface of Formula 1, and you will see that already from the next Grand Prix we would have forgotten about it, unfortunately. Now let's discuss the issues with the Ferrari SF25. What emerged after the China Grand Prix is Ferrari in crisis? The facts speak clearly. The performance of the SF25 is not up to expectations. He was seen on the track, the drivers confirmed it, and if the team excludes correlation problems as stated by technical director Loic Serra, there remains the knot of a single-seater that still today escapes the full understanding of the Maranello engineers. It's not just a matter of performance. Ferrari has also struggled in managing race weekends, unlike Red Bull, which, even with a not perfect car, manages to maximize potential thanks to Verstappen's talent. The team has made mistakes on fundamental aspects. The double disqualification in China after pole and victory in the sprint is the demonstration of a project that does not work as it should, neither on the track nor at the pit wall. The SF25 has exhibited challenging behaviors to control since the Bahrain tests. Analyzing the data and the onboards of the first races, a clear fact emerges. The Ferrari suffers from chronic understeer, not oversteer. Despite appearances and some moments of instability on exit, it's the behavior when entering the curve that reveals the true limit. In fact, the drivers are forced to use steering angles greater than normal to reach the apex. Then, when they accelerate out, the already loaded and unstable rear struggles to ensure grip, generating imbalances and loss of traction. The main cause is in the aerodynamic balance. The bottom of the SF25 is capable of generating a lot of load, but only within a very narrow operating window. The surplus of downforce, mainly located at the rear, shifts the dynamic center of gravity towards the rear axle, causing understeer effect. Top teams like Red Bull and McLaren work to avoid this, contain the peak load under the single-seater, making the balance more homogeneous and predictable. This approach ensures greater stability and a car that is easier to push to the limit. Ferrari currently can't do it. To improve, the team needs to intervene on the interaction between the floor and the rear suspension, which is not yet optimized today. It is necessary to expand the aerodynamic map of the car and make the load distribution more manageable. The planned updates will go in this direction, reducing the peak load, making the single-seater behavior more constant, and correcting the understeer that penalizes both Leclerc and Hamilton. In short, the SF25 has potential, I want to reiterate that, but for now it remains trapped in an unstable balance, and until the balance is resolved, Ferrari will remain far from the positions that count. And how is the development of the Ferrari SF25 for this year going? Which areas will be most modified? Already during the preseason tests, the team had identified some critical issues, particularly related to the generation of aerodynamic load. That's why Ferrari has anticipated the development program aiming to introduce the first updates already in Japan. With further innovations planned for Bahrain, the heart of the problem seems to be the car bottom, a key component in ground effect single-seaters. The data collected highlighted a too narrow operating window. Many have blamed the rear axle, suggesting it squats excessively or lowers too much during acceleration. But the reality is more complex. As also emerged in Australia and then in China, Ferrari tried to push the setup to the limit to maximize the load, risking going out of the regulatory window for the wear of the bottom. However, it is unlikely that the problem is purely mechanical. The management of ground clearance, the excursions of the bottom, and the stiffness of the suspensions are adjustable parameters. More likely, the SF25 has a limited aerodynamic map and is too sensitive to changes in attitude. The bottom, although generating a good load, does so only in a narrow range of conditions. Other teams seem to manage heights better and reduce skid wear thanks to smart solutions and flexible adjustments in some areas of the bottom, like the T3 zone, a delicate issue often touched upon by drivers in press conferences, as in the case of Leclerc in Australia. In fact, the SF25 in China showed good potential with a lower weight and even less fuel. 30-35 kilos less weight, a sign that aerodynamic instability remains the main problem with the long race. The SF25 mainly struggles in managing roll and yaw. The goal is to expand the aerodynamic map, and these changes will arrive in upcoming races. It will be very important for Ferrari to bring the updates as soon as possible to intervene on the potential of the SF25, and in case they do not work, already aim for 2026 so as not to be screwed in quotes for next year. Having said that, we need to get back to the topic of Red Bull. By week's end, the official announcement of Tsunoda replacing Lawson at Red Bull will arrive. Patience has run out. Red Bull has decided to implement a sensational swap starting from the next Grand Prix in Japan. Tsunoda will step up to the RB21 alongside Max
Verstappen, while
Liam Lawson will return to Racing Bulls, joining Isaac Ajar on the VCarb 02. An unexpected turn that contradicts months of evaluations and reflections. Helmut Marko and Christian Horner had chosen Lawson over Tsunoda at the beginning of the year, also rejecting Pinto due to Williams' financial request of 20 million. However, after just 2 races, the situation has flipped. Lawson appeared to struggle with a complicated single-seater like the RB21. As Albon has explained several times, driving a Red Bull is like controlling a highly sensitive mouse in a video game. You understand well that every small change makes a huge difference on the track, and only Verstappen can handle this.
Red Bull.
Tsunoda has impressed with a brilliant start to the season. Suzuka, his home, will be the perfect stage for this anticipated and risky debut. It's a golden opportunity for Tsunoda, but as mentioned, the Red Bull. It's a car built around Verstappen's unique style, so we have to see if the Japanese driver will be able to handle this wild Thor. The list of drivers who have failed to adapt to the style required at Red Bull is long, from Gasly to Albon. Up to Lawson today, so is the RB21 too focused on Verstappen? Pierre Rocher, Red Bull's technical director, has subtly implied it. The talent of Max is an advantage, but also a risk because it hides the problems of the car and makes it difficult to evaluate it with other drivers. And the real question is, does Red Bull really need a second driver or just someone who survives? Even Tsunoda would struggle with the RB21 as it's designed specifically around a certain driving style
Of Verstappen. And when
you turn the mouse sensitivity to the maximum, any driver will not be able to handle this single-seater. It will be interesting to see how Tsunoda applies himself at Red Bull. In my view, Tsunoda has an edge over previous Red Bull drivers, however, his hot-headedness is a weakness. However, he is a driver who works hard and studies diligently to reach his full potential. He has a bit of that Japanese mentality in trying to follow orders. And on a very Austrian vision of the team, that of Red Bull, effectively led by Helmut Marko, I think he could also adapt well because he does not suffer from that emotionality that perhaps the drivers have been accused of in the past. Think about Perez in the final part of last season, but now there's another question to ask. Does the Red Bull Junior team system work? Lawson's failure amplifies a much larger problem. The Red Bull Junior team is no longer producing talents up to the main team's standards. Perez's departure, who had just had his contract renewed, had shone a light on the inability of the nursery to produce truly competitive drivers. And Tsunoda remains the last internal and media chance. A driver who, let's remember, had been discarded in the winter in favor of Lawson. He now has a golden chance to debut before his home crowd at Suzuka. And in my opinion, they should have put Tsunoda in Red Bull and Lawson in Racing Bulls right from the start. Not because I doubt Lawson's potential, also because he's a phenomenal driver. In my opinion, Lawson is a great talent, but it allows him to get better used to driving an easier car, which is the Racing Bulls. Verstappen also put him in, so you put Lawson and Aguiari together, you saw which of the two was stronger, and in the meantime, you put Tsunoda, who he completed his apprenticeship with Racing Bulls Red Bull's team, which was the right choice from the start of 2025. They made a mistake, and if they have backtracked, we will see how Tsunoda will do in Red Bull. The comparison with the other junior teams of the rival houses is overwhelming. Mercedes can already smile with Andrea Cimantonelli, 2 convincing GPs. And Ferrari has showcased the raw but promising Oliver Burman, displaying the maturity needed in a top team. Alpine and Sauber are giving space to Jack Doohan and Gabriel Bortoleto. For Lawson, the last call comes in Racing Bulls because patience has run out and every point is vital for the Constructors' Championship. Lawson could have been given more than just 2 races. His performance in Racing Bulls remains to be seen. He knows that this once again confirms that Red Bull is Verstappen-centric. And this is a huge problem, especially for the fight in the Constructors' Championship. The very last thing we need to talk about is the problem McLaren had with Norris's car during the China Grand Prix.
the first ones.
Initial analysis suggests that there was a leak in the car's hydraulic system, the same system that controls oversteering, the clutch, the differential, the drag reduction system, and most importantly, the brake-by-wire system, which is the electronic system that controls rear braking while recovering energy through the motor generator unit kinetic. And the brake-by-wire is essential in modern Formula 1 because it allows the integration of mechanical braking with electrical regeneration, providing the driver with uniform and predictable braking power. Even if the traditional braking system remained intact, the malfunction of the brake-by-wire probably caused an overheating of the brake pump, leading to the well-known pedal elongation. For this reason, the engineers instructed Norris to modulate the braking and avoid aggressive decelerations. In Shanghai, Norris managed the risk with coolness, staying focused and skillfully defending his second place. However, be aware that these problems should not occur on any Formula 1 single-seater, so McLaren needs to review its car and try to avoid these potentially very risky situations, because they can lead to a driver's withdrawal. Let me know in the comments your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos on the channel. Every day I update you on all the news about Formula 1 and specifically about Ferrari. I'll leave you with some related videos. That's all from Lassa. See you in the next video.